All right, y'all, pack that second breakfast to go. We're going on an adventure. Our adventure begins with Bilbo Baggins, a hobbit. He's a dude who wants to vibe in his cozy little hobbit hole, baking scones, drinking tea, eating 6 meals a day, and not die. He's basically the medieval fantasy version of the guy in your neighborhood who mows the lawn in his white New Balances and tube socks every single Saturday. Unfortunately for Bilbo, Gandalf, the local chaotic wizard that absolutely has unpaid bar tabs at every tavern in every village that you're gonna come across, comes by and volunteers, really more like voluntold Bilbo, he's about to go on a quest. Why? Because Gandalf has a group of 13 dwarves led by Thorin Oakenshield, and they need a burglar for their little treasure hunting quest. Do they pick an actual thief? Nah, bro. They're not gonna pick an actual thief. They pick Bilbo. He seems fit for the job. Bilbo's a guy whose only crime so far is overeating and possibly evading hobbit taxes. He's like, excuse me? I don't steal things. I just bake scones and drink tea. Bilbo tries to say no, but you know what? 24 hours later, that little homie's running down the street, no supplies, no training, no experience, no plan, and he's off on an adventure. Great start for an awesome character arc. First stop, Troll Town. The dwarves get captured by 3 idiot trolls because, well, dwarves have the survival instincts of a plastic bag blowing in the wind in a Walmart parking lot. These trolls, they're debating whether or not they're going to eat these guys raw or have some dwarf kebabs. Bilbo, trying his best to prove he belongs because at this point in the story, he's that annoying little brother that tags along and asks you a million questions, tries to pickpocket one of the trolls. Guess how well that goes. Thankfully, Gandalf shows up like a Dungeons & Dragons dungeon master, saving his players from their own stupidity, and tricks the trolls into arguing until the sun rises. This turns them to stone. Here's a fun fact for you. Those statues are still there in The Lord of the Rings, proving to you that sometimes bad decisions are permanent. The gang end up in Rivendell. They crash at this dude named Elrond's place. Elrond is like that one friend who has his life way too put together. Like seriously, almost annoyingly put together. He's the ultimate elf dad. Dude's giving off ultimate elf dad energy. He's wise, he's graceful, and he probably smells like an enchanted mix of pine trees and an expensive elven cologne. He runs Rivendell like an expensive 5-star spa retreat for exhausted adventurers, serving up moon rune translations with a side of judgment. If you're not smelling what I'm stepping in, imagine a dude who looks like he's 35 years old, but in fact is actually thousands of years old. He always gives flawless advice and somehow never has a hair out of place. It's immaculate. He's got that I told you so energy, but delivers it with such elegance, you're not even mad. Basically, if Gandalf is like your chaotic uncle, Elrond is the classy, exasperated dad who just wants you to stop bringing in cursed jewelry to his home. Elrond reads the treasure map that the crew brought him and essentially tells him like, bro, this only works in the moonlight. But he says it in a more elegant fashion. I'm not elegant. Anyway, Bilbo and the dwarves pretty much overextended their stay because the elves are annoyed with them. They think that they're just like feral raccoons because they smell like they just got done wrestling goats. They refuse to take a bath and they only eat meat. So on to the next stop in their adventure. On this next stop, the gang gets ambushed by goblins, thrown into a cave, and then nearly executed. But while they're busy not dying, Bilbo managed to get separated and runs into the creepiest thing ever, Gollum. Now, Gollum is a slimy cave goblin with the personality of a gas station possum on meth with an unhealthy attachment to jewelry. He challenges Bilbo to a game of riddles. If Bilbo wins, Gollum will lead him to the exit. If he loses, Gollum gets a nice tasty lunch. Bilbo somehow wins by accident mostly, and on his way out, he steals Gollum's magic ring, which, spoiler alert, turns out to be the one ring to rule them all. But for now, it's just a cool invisibility cheat code. You know, like back, forward, down, left, right, A, B, that kind of cheat code. This levels him up from annoying baggage to team MVP. Anywho, Bilbo escapes and finally catches up with the dwarves who have zero idea he just found the single most dangerous artifact in history. So after escaping the goblins, the gang gets chased by wargs, which are basically wolves that never skip leg day, and then more orcs. They escape again thanks to giant eagles who have this propensity to show up only when they're needed, at the exact right time. Anyway, they finally make it to Mirkwood Forest, which is basically Australia if every animal on that continent were trying to kill you. Which essentially exactly describes Australia. So Mirkwood is just Australia covered in trees. Well, the dwarves, being the dwarves that they are, immediately get lost and poisoned because they have the survival instincts of a wet sock. Then a bunch of spiders the size of motorcycles show up and start wrapping everyone up as if they're going to be the next burrito. This is where Bilbo finally starts acting like a main character. He kills a giant spider, names his sword Sting, and starts shanking spiders left and right. He even trash talking while he's doing this, and then oddly enough starts referring to himself in the third person. Dude had an absolute glow up. After beating these spiders, the gang gets arrested by elves led by Thranduil, who's rocking a supercuts platinum blonde hairstyle and has zero patience for dwarves. Thranduil locks them all up in cells because Thorin refuses to pay tolls across their land. Bilbo, now a full-time rogue, sneaks around using his invisibility ring and single-handedly busts the dwarves out by stuffing them in barrels and yeeting them down the river. This escape should have killed at least 5 of them, if I'm being honest. But you know what? Plot armor is a hell of a drug. After escaping in barrels down the stream like they're going through Prohibition, they end up at Lake Town, also known as Esgaroth. This is where we meet Bard the Bowman. Now, Bard the Bowman is essentially Middle-earth's most underrated single dad. Bard's whole deal is that he's the only competent person here. I mean, there is an actual ruler, the master of Lake Town, but that dude is too busy being a corrupt politician. Lake Town is a human settlement where everybody's basically broke because Smaug the dragon keeps doing flybys and burning all their shit down. Bard helps the gang out because he remembers that dragons are bad and helping dwarves is probably not the best idea, but F it. So with the help of Bard, the gang gets on to the next little adventure here and they reach the Lonely Mountain. Here they break in and Bilbo is like sneaking in alone because, well, dwarves are dumb and they bumble around and everything. And at this point, he is actually the only one doing anything. What's inside of this Lonely Mountain? Smaug. Smaug. I don't know how to say his name. I'm going with Smaug. You know what I mean. It's Smaug probably, but I'm not going to remember that. Now, Smaug is a massive, fire-breathing, gold-hoarding, trash-talking lizard with wings who has been asleep for decades but still manages to wake up angry and mad about it. Bilbo, instead of running, remembers dragons love to compliments and he starts glazing him. In the midst of glazing, Bilbo realizes that Smaug has a nice little piece of armor missing on his chest. After Bilbo figures out Smaug's weak spot, the dragon absolutely loses it. Dude's like, oh, you think you're slick over there, little guy? Furry feet? You and your little dwarf friends are toast. Instead of just roasting the crew right there on the spot because it's convenient, Smaug flies off to Lake Town because what says revenge better than burning down a completely unrelated town? Over in Lake Town, if you remember, Bard is the only one with a shred of common sense. The town's ruler, master of Lake Town, aka discount politician McGreedy, is still busy hoarding gold and pretending like this isn't his problem. Like, not my problem, bro. But Bard, nah, man. Bard's posted up on the rooftops like an absolute badass, waiting for his moment. As Smaug starts wrecking this town like a medieval Godzilla, Bard's son randomly shows up with this black arrow. Not like just any arrow, it is the arrow. This is the one arrow Bard has saved his whole life. It's been passed down from generation to generation, which is either really sentimental or just lazy weapon maintenance. Either way, Bard lines up and one-shots Smaug right in the chest. Down goes Smaug, eating pavement right into the lake, and he dies mad about it. But the fun's not over yet, y'all. With Smaug out of the picture, Thorin Oakenshield is officially in charge of Gold Mountain. And boy howdy does this dude go bonkers. Dude goes full dragon mode. Like, he's not physically turning into a dragon, but mentally, 100%, all the way there. He starts treating his allies like enemies, fortifies the mountain, and spends way too much time staring at gold like he's Gollum's rich uncle. Thorin is especially obsessed with the Arkenstone, which is like the ultimate dwarf bling that basically symbolizes his right to rule. The problem? Bilbo already stole it. I mean, he's a burglar now, right? And he kept it because even Bilbo knows Thorin's want a one-way trip to Crazy Town. Outside the mountain, Bard and his people are like, hey, you remember how Smaug just torched our town? Can we maybe get some disaster relief funds from you? You're sitting on a bunch of gold there. Thorin's response, nah, man, you'll have that on these big jobs. Then the elves roll up, all graceful and smug as usual. They're trying to negotiate with Thorin. Thorin's like, nah, not my problem. What does Thorin do? Well, instead he calls for backup. His cousin Dian and his Iron Hills dwarf army all show up ready to throw hands. Now, it's at this point Bilbo has had enough. He sneaks out and hands the Arkenstone to Bard, thinking like, well, if he's not going to listen to me, maybe he's going to think like listen to the only thing he's obsessed with, this stone. Spoiler, he won't. When Thorin finds out, he goes full on Hulk mode and tries to yeet Bilbo right off the face of the mountain. And Gandalf's stepping in like, all right, that's enough war crimes for today, just chill out. This brings on the Battle of the Five Armies. The Battle of the Five Armies, that's like the modern day era of an all-out WWE cage match brawl between the dwarves, the elves, the humans, the orcs, and the wolves. Just when it looks like the dwarves, elves, and humans are about to start their own battle royale, a massive orc army shows up like, surprise, motherfucker! Because of course, when there's a pile of gold laying around, Sauron's army is gonna be like, hey, I want a piece of that too. Now, everyone's gotta team up like the Avengers just to survive. It is absolute madness. Dwarves are swinging axes, elves doing unnecessary gymnastics, shooting arrows like they're Hawkeye in the first Avengers movie, and humans just like over there trying not to die, like, please no. And orcs, wargs make up everything worse. Thorin, finally snapping out of his gold-fueled rage, decides to go down in history by leading a heroic charge alongside his nephews, Fili and Kili. And by heroic here, we mean absolutely tragic, because all three of them get absolutely wrecked in battle. Fili and Kili get killed trying to protect Thorin, and Thorin himself gets mortally wounded in one-on-one combat with the gigantic orc Azog. As Thorin lays dying, he finally chills out for 5 seconds, long enough to make peace with Bilbo. His last words were basically like, hey man, apparently money isn't necessarily everything. My bad, y'all. And he's out. Dian takes over Erebor. Bard gets some treasure to rebuild Lake Town. And the elves leave because they're too pretty for this mess. After watching nearly everybody die over a pile of gold that he had zero interest in, Bilbo is finally like, y'all can keep your cursed gold. I am out. So Bilbo heads back home. Only to find out everyone there auctioned off his stuff because they thought he was dead. Even worse, everyone thinks he's weird now because he went on an adventure. Hobbits don't leave their homes. So Bilbo, the once perfectly respectable hobbit, now just lives alone, occasionally muttering about dragons and how he almost died 50 times, magic rings. But little does he know that that ring he found, yeah, it's about to ruin the lives of everyone around him in the next 60 years. And that, my friends, is how a quiet, second breakfast-loving hobbit became a dragon-sassing, spider-stabbing, dwarf-yeeting, war-surviving legend. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you on the next one.